Now, we don't want to scaremonger here, Will, and obviously people are starting to think ahead already, aren't they, Simon, about booking their holidays to get the best deals. How much truth is there? Because this was a leaked report, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a leaked report. It's kind of been on the radar for a couple of years now because there have been increasing numbers of Spanish nationals who've gone down to join Iraq and ISIS in Iraq and Syria. About 200 estimated now. And there have been a number of plots that have been foiled. There were two around Christmas time at the end of last year. There is a lot of history of terrorism, obviously, within Spain, with ETA, the Basque separatists, initially. Al-Qaeda, obviously, the most notable attack against the Madrid train stations, obviously, in 2004. So it's always been on the radar of international terrorism, but Islamic State is sort of pushing forward because there are histories of Spain having been predominantly Muslim-occupied, and they are always looking for an opportunity to reclaim a caliphate.
And did this leaked report, are they saying that they are particularly targeting the holiday resorts, the Costa Brava, the Costa del Sol, where a lot of British people obviously take their holidays?
Yeah, absolutely. What we know about Islamic State is they're very much focused towards non-combatants. It's not the traditional sort of military and police kind of targets that we've seen before.
Easy stuff.
Exactly. It's always, and the terrorist is always going to look for the path of least resistance and maximum impact. And we saw this in Tunisia. And
Simon, they've had maximum impact in North Africa and in Turkey, for instance, and hence that's why people are drawing back. They're taking in the traditional Mediterranean resorts. So far this tactic has worked for them.
Well, it certainly has. But look, I am urging people, particularly if they've booked a trip to Spain and they're now worried about it, understandably, because here we are talking about it, not to change anything. Partly that's because your holiday company, if you say, oh, don't want to go to Spain, let me go to Portugal instead, will say, well, that's fine, but of course you'll be paying.
Excuse me, could I ask, you just mentioned Portugal there. Is that on a list to worry about?
It's not on the high end of the list. It's one of the lower countries. So, for example, Portugal, Italy, Greece are on the sort of lower spectrum of potential terrorism targets. However, there are aspects of overlap from Spain over to, certainly, to the lower parts of Portugal.
Yeah. But I would say keep the risks in perspective. I would very happily take my family to Spain this year, and more people will be going there than ever before, partly because there's been such a sharp move away, particularly from Turkey, where actually I'm going next month. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really focused about crossing the road because the driving standards are terrible there. Honestly, being a tourist, if you're British, has never been safer. We are
Yeah, but
far
my friend, you're
safer.
not going back to Tunisia, are you?
Oh, as soon as the Foreign Office says it's safe to go back, I'll be on the first plane out, I assure you.
So what about, Simon, if you have booked, you've already booked, and you're listening to this and they don't feel as confident as you and saying, you know what, I might just like to change my travel plans, maybe don't want to cancel a holiday, where would they stand with the travel company if they just want to say, I just don't want to go to Spain?
Well, they'll say normal terms and conditions apply. You will have to pay us extra money if you want to change your destination or indeed cancel your holiday if you are thinking, well, the only safe place in the world now is Skegness. But bear in mind the overall risks. Please, of course, we're seeing at the moment the terrible inquest to that dreadful massacre on the beach in Tunisia. But honestly, on the scale of grief, that is
but we are bearing in
terrible
mind the overall risks. And if you haven't booked and you're looking for a choice, for instance, you just mentioned Turkey. Nicest holiday we have ever had was Turkey. Would we go back?
Not at the moment.
It would take a lot of persuasion, I have to say. Now, when you say weigh up the risks, Will, these risks are Spanish-specific, and we're talking about the Canary Islands as well, where there has been an arrest. What exactly is going on, and why have we to worry about what is going on in Spain?
OK, why we need to worry is because, obviously, like many other countries, obviously, across Europe, it is very much a focus for Islamic State to carry out a horrific act. But I think I do need to go with Simon a little bit on this. The Spanish authorities have got a long history of dealing with terrorism, a lot better than the French in many regards, and certainly the Germans. They've dealt with terrorism. They've had some very successful plots that they've foiled. There was even a cache of 10 million euros worth of weapons, which they managed to grab, which were terror-related this month in January, or sorry, last month in January. I'm going to Barcelona in the next couple of weeks. It's not going to stop me. I think we have to remember that what people will need to adjust to is, as we've seen in Paris and along the Côte d'Azur last summer, is there's going to be a higher visibility of military and police presence. And
which is a good thing.
Which is good.
Yeah, which is a great thing. But I think also people need to be pragmatic in these times to also have a plan. If they're travelling with their family, what to do in the event of a potential terrorist incident or something.
You have said
occurring.
this before, wherever you are, have your kind of exit strategy.
Exactly.
And I suppose also to be vigilant, you know, that we're involved in this too, if you see anything suspicious. The Foreign Office are saying our online travel advice contains thorough information on staying safe abroad, including terrorism threats, and we keep it under constant review.
Indeed,
so they haven't said,
Simon, it is no
don't
different.
travel.
The threat, to put it in proportion, is the same as you would have in place in London, for instance.
Well, it's
Level
a
4,
bit
isn't
different if you are actually talking about terrorist attacks aimed specifically at tourists, and this has actually been going on since the 1980s in Peru, of all places, and it was very successful there. And there's actually a bigger danger here. That is, if it only takes Islamic State just to say, oh, we think we're going to be targeting Spain this year, and we all go, oh, we're not going there then actually terrorism is winning and they will continue to do it. So I would laugh in the face of IS, frankly, and go off to Tenerife.
Well, Will, quick final word from you.
Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, ultimately anywhere is... I would say you'd need to apply safety, vigilance, situational awareness, whether you're walking into central London, Manchester, Birmingham, as well as Madrid, Barcelona, or anywhere else across Europe, unfortunately, right now. So we just have to be pragmatic.